Shalom Israel. First and foremost, I do want to give all praise, all honor, and all glory to Yahweh by Hashem Yahushua by Hashem Kakadash, to belong to the apostles, Nels Great Millstone, for teaching us true peace and blessings to the whole elect of Israel. Yahweh is the name of the Father and Chief, by Hashem is the name, Yahweh Shai is the name of the begotten Son. Back in the lesson, and today we're going to be going to the situation at hand where you had this woman get shot down by ICE. They were trying to drive away, but this could also, be another ploy by Esau Edom, a false flag, a situation where they had their hand in order to pretty much get the type of reaction that they wanted, which you are seeing people protesting and pretty much rioting now already, which is, as we read right here, which of course it could be an actual situation. But this is speak too fast. Lucky. This is the woman that got shot down their vehicle right here. But this is Christian mother of two. American was shot, and they put emphasis on American. And also, this devil could care less about his own people, especially. So this is also to no surprise. But this was shot twice in the head by ICE agent for non-compliance, which I believe I have the video, but she was trying to flee away in the vehicle, or turn away, and you try to use that as justification as to why they shot her down. They used it used the term self-defense, that they were defending themselves while the car was driving away. So what this could be something this devil most definitely has his hand in order to stir up things, because this devil's most definitely going to take advantage of the chaos, going to order out of chaos. Well, this devil will purposely cause problems and stir up certain situations in order to get the reaction that they want, in order to be so-called justified when they start laying rounds into people, shutting this place down, declaring martial law, which you have Trump had been alluding to. He was pretty much asked, or something came up, but he pretty much said there's not enough cause or reason to pretty much declare martial law right now. So it was something to that effect, but pretty much going to show they're going to stir certain things up in order to be so-called justified in doing so. But let's further read a little bit more into the situation at hand. But as I expect to see riots all over America, which you already see Minnesota going crazy right now. Those videos of people throwing snowballs at ICE and pretty much stopping them from leaving. And this has been brewing for a minute now, really. Dealing with all these different situations that have been breaking out. Getting a quick drink. Where you had this one woman, I believe she was an Issacharite, so-called Mexican, was tackled down. And they pretty much made up a reason as to justify taking her down and throwing her in. You had that situation, and you have even had them say F the kids and all this types of stuff, and just other all situations just taking place where people are getting riled up, which is what you are beginning to see. So I have more situations that says Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey after fatal shooting to ICE. Get that out of here, Minneapolis. We don't want you here. Else Minneapolis, so like it's in Minnesota. But you're also seeing that sedition among men, which is really the main point in this lesson. You're going to see riots. You're going to see people, which you can second that one, going to those uproars of the people in the world. These are things that we're beginning to see. So let's play a quick video, get a couple more. Maybe a longer type of lesson. What the Spirit leads me to get. So get out of the way, get help scriptures in the Lord's lesson. Be fine. Let's dive into it.
People want you here, and I have a message for ICE. To ICE, get the fuck out of Minneapolis.
So you have people in these leadership-like positions are now beginning to pretty much go against Trump, pretty much, because what you also seen I forgot the exact person it was, but you pretty much had them going against things that Trump pretty much put in place, making safe zones and make to where ICE can't really do what they want to do.
We do not want you here.
So you are seeing, a great divide taking place, which I believe I even made a point in one of my last lessons. Going to this division that you are seeing. Dealing with, NATO and these, allies, which are, going to soon turn against the war, which is Babylon the Great, aka America. As you're especially seeing this right here. Minneapolis mayor is telling ICE to, get out of here. And you also have a lot of people in these other states pretty much, feeling the same way. Let's continue on.
Your stated reason for being in this city is to create some kind of safety, and you are doing exactly the opposite. People are being hurt. Families are being ripped apart. Long-term Minneapolis residents that have contributed so greatly to our city, to our culture, to our economy are being terrorized, and now somebody is dead.
And a call, Holo Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh. We are in some exciting time. We're just a few days into this so-called New Year, and look at all the things that are happening and playing out. There's also another one here. It's now increasingly larger crowds of protesters are throwing snow and ice at local federal officers as they leave the scene of today's fatal ICE shooting. I believe they're also now holding up these buildings. It says, watch as chaos is unfolding in downtown Minneapolis as rioters. So, people begin to riot. Break through the doors of the federal courthouse, chanting ICE out now and demanding justice. And this is obviously going to lead to this devil, tightening that grip. And, using this situation, to his advantage. Because it really is ultimately, what he wants in order to, put that foot down and to really, establish that total control. Let's get a little more of these videos that is, scrolled past, and we'll jump into
Deputies have not been on that scene, but it looks like as officers are leaving the scene, just having some protesters or bystanders, agitators, throwing some snowballs at them as they leave. We saw.
And once you've been seeing a lot of, chaos pretty much erupting in all these different, places around the world, which you saw in France, Thailand, Nepal, and a few other locations where you had a bunch of, protests and riots taking place. People storming, Capitol buildings, key buildings and all this types of stuff. So this was, meaning to happen, here in Babylon the Great. So this may trickle on down to these other states, or you may see people begin to rise up even more, or, we had to see. But this was, brewing and, meaning to happen, as I brought up a few examples of, other ICE situations where you had people pretty much already fed up.
Earlier.
We did. Yep, we saw this exact thing earlier, and this was targeted toward ICE agents at that particular time. But now, as you mentioned, this is MPD, BCA was on scene, the Sheriff's Department as well. And as this street is opening up here, you can see a lot of these protesters, these people in the community responding to this. And now we're having an aerial view here of what we have been seeing, what we did see earlier, and now it's once again, you can see them throwing some of those snowballs at those.
Some Minneapolis residents are in the streets attacking federal agents. But you pretty much get the gist, the idea. Good to all the video right here. So you're seeing the spirit is being stirred in the midst of these people. People are now beginning to stand up, getting riled up. That's another better way of articulating. People are being this riled up spirit, which we saw within a couple of videos of the things that they're doing, protesting, and now beginning to riot. Which I saw a few comments of people saying, you won't be surprised if Minneapolis is on fire tonight. And you've seen various situations pretty much similar to that situation that transpired right there, take place, where you had people pretty much act off of what took place. They began to protest, riot. So we'll see what more will come from the situation. Whether it may be a ploy, of this devil, or a literal, genuine, situation that took place. But either way, this is what this devil wants in order to establish that total control. Dealing with that, martial law being declared, and them using these situations that are popping off, dealing with people rioting, breaking into buildings, and you saw right there as an example. May not to be that extreme, but you're using these as justification in order to justify establishing that control. But 2 Kings 15:14 through 17 says, "Woe to the world and them that dwell therein. For the sword and destruction draw nigh, when people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands." And made the point earlier, you're seeing a great divide begin to take place. You have people that support, heavily for ICE. There's one lesson I made going to this one dude that was in support of ICE, went to like a protest or something, and he ended up being bloody. So you also have people that are obviously against ICE, as you've seen with these protests. So you're seeing a great split taking place, as you also have the people in these leadership like positions. You saw with that mayor telling ICE to get out of here, and a few other examples. But hey, coming to the year 2026, hey, it's already popping off, kicking off with a bang. And hey, we said this dude's been probably how about shy. But it says, for there, which is verse 16, which is the main point, for there should be sedition among men, and invading one another should not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of actual stand in their power. So that main point going to that sedition goes to riot / rebellion, which you are, beginning to see, which is another telltale sign we're near the end of this place. And especially it's going to show this kingdom, is crumbling, Because your own people is fighting amongst each other, especially against you, that you're in trouble. But this is verse 16 one more time. For this should be sedition among men, and invading one another should not regard their kings, nor princes, dealing with the people in authority and power, like your mayors, your presidents, these authorities. Now, it says, in the courts actual stand in the power. Verse 17, another good point. And man shall desire to go into his city and shall not be able. So prophecy is unfolding right before our very eyes. So this could possibly lead to, curfew being sent into place, checkpoints being held. We're using this one situation just as an example as to what's getting ready to unfold. And really how you're going to see situations like this, but, be a lot more, heightened, worse, for lack of better terms. Whereas it leads to them, pretty much shutting this place down and all these different types of things, which you see, this devil, has done before. But once to that main point, going to that sedition among men, which we are seeing. Luke 21:25, for that point, it should be signs in the sun, the moon, and the stars, and upon the earth, the distress of nations, with perplexity to the sea and the waves roaring. So, more end time signs, things that we would transpire, things that we would see, things that would take place before Lord Yahushua will return. 2 Kings 1:4, and a good point. He answered me then, and said, measure thou the time diligently in itself. Now, how to measure times that we're in via these signs and these prophecies, and we're at the end stages of this movie. Chaos is beginning to unfold and unwrap at a insane level. We're 7 days in, to this so-called new year, and look at all the things that have already took place. You're seeing the situation in Venezuela. You're seeing wars, rumors of wars, as you now have the U.S. pretty much going against their own allies. And you had Greenland, or not Greenland, was it Greenland? I forgot the exact one, but they pretty much said that if America does this, NATO is pretty much finished. So you have that. You had multiple chariot sightings taking place. You're seeing this situation popping up. A lot of things already unfolding, man. And hey, beautiful and exciting times. And this is prophecy speaking, man. What's in 2 Kings 15 and 16, as we just read, dealing with that sedition among men, which we are seing. These uproars of the people, which we're going to further read Then shalt thou understand that it is the very same time when the highest will begin to visit world which he made, which can be by the way of our Lord Yahweh Shai, verse 3. Therefore, when it should be seen earthquakes and uproars of the people in the world. This is what we are seeing. Then shalt thou understand the Most High spake those things from the days that before thee, even from the beginning. 2 Ezra 16:18, the beginning of sorrows and great mournings, the beginning of famine and great death. Hey, all hell's getting ready to break loose, man. They don't make these purge movies for nothing. I was trying to find out another good example, but that's also pretty much a good one. That's the beginning of sorrows and great mournings, the beginning of famine and great death, the beginning of wars, and the power shall stand in fear. The beginning of evils, what shall I do when these evils shall come? So just going to show how horrific, how chaotic it's going to get out here. Behold, famine and plague, tribulation, anguish, and scourges for amendment. I believe that's it right there. And we can continue on. But so you can obviously see, how situations like this can, stir up and cause, various problems. But as I made that point, this type of a reaction, this devil only wants in order to establish that control, to be justified in laying around into you, because he wants to take you out, and you can clearly see he don't even care about his own people. Ain't that something? But Isaiah 19:2, and it says, "And I'll set the Egyptians against the Egyptians." And it's not speaking of ancient Egypt, as you can also especially get in the Revelation 11th chapter, going to Babylon the Great, aka America, being spiritually Sodom and Egypt. Because I do want to get into the translation. This says, "And they shall and they shall fight everyone against his brother, and everyone against his neighbor, seed against seed, and kingdom against kingdom." Now let's get to G&T. That's what the Lord says. The Lord says, "I will stir up civil war in Egypt, and turn brother against brother, neighbor against neighbor. Rival cities will fight each other, and rival kings will struggle for power." So you're seeing division being stirred even more. And we said this to Prophet Al-Bashar Rashad, that Donald Trump would be especially used to bring about chaos and to bring about division. Hey, you're seeing it. So let's get this word civil war. So the war between citizens of the same country. And it's also going to have, race wars soon especially break out, as you're especially seeing with this right here, people in support of ICE and wanting, Jake out of here, calling our people the so-called aliens and the strangers. When, our people were here before, them. So make that make sense. But once again, further going to this division, sedition among men, uproars of the people, and we're in those times. 2 Ezra 16:70, "For there shall be in every place and in the next cities a great insurrection upon those that fear the Lord." It says they should be like madmen, sparing none, but still spoiling and destroying those that fear the Lord. This is why it's important to be under the hedge and protection of Yahweh Bashar Shai. Because it's going to get chaotic out here, bad, as you're seeing. This is just a start. This is just a start. And you already see people are fed up and are beginning to be reactive, to, situations that just, or, to the situation that you see just took place, where the one was shot down not even hours after. Protests and, riots are already beginning to take place. But the Revelation is 12:12. "Now therefore rejoice, ye heavens, yet the one that bolts and the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is coming unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time." So as the devil begins to rush, his plans, put him in action. That's why he's especially getting, revealed and getting pretty much exposed for the things that he's doing. As you also scripture how that man of sin was being revealed. So people are now beginning to wake up to the fact that things this devil is doing. But it's pushing that point how they're beginning to rush and implement their plans, because they know their time is ticking, their time's running out. Especially as further going to that point of this great wrath that devil's trying to come down with. He's gonna bring that hammer down. He's gonna tighten that grip. So don't be surprised when you see more situations like that take place. As we're going to especially get here in 2 Corinthians 2:11. Let Satan should avenge us, for we are not ignorant of his device. We ultimately see what this devil's playing at, the things he's trying to do as we can further get NLT. So that Satan will now outsmart us, for we are familiar with his evil schemes. Because we've seen various situations like that right there. And just, other various examples of, this devil, having his hand in the midst of these, various situations in order to get the desired outcome, of what he wants. To get a reaction, to then swoop in with the so-called solution to the problems that they ultimately started. So if you see more situations like this break out, where you have, people rioting, breaking into buildings, when you have a lot more people, fighting amongst each other, killing each other left and right, suddenly to this devil, swooping like the so-called hero, establishing that total control. Where you're going to see curfews, you're going to see lockdowns, you're going to see martial law especially be declared, which is one of the main things the devil has been wanting to do, which you've been seeing these past couple months, going back to last year, where you had, National Guard troops being sent out to these various states. You had a bunch of ICE agents pretty much given the go-ahead to do whatever they want, as you've seen right here within this video. Put two rounds in their head that post that we just read, said. So, especially, getting people used to being around this type of militaristic, that's a word, just getting used to being surrounded by troops and all this types of stuff. So, hey, a lot of things are happening, a lot of things going on. Lord will, I tie these points together. It's my ability. Just came across that. Thought I'd make a lesson, going into it, because we're seeing biblical prophecy, speaking and unfolding right before our very eyes. Because literal, 2 Ezra 15 and 15 through 17, as we read, made a point going to that sedition among men. These uproars of the people which we are beginning to see. So, it's prophecy. So, I do want to close out. Give all praise, all honor, and all glory to Yahweh, Bashem, Ashah, Bashem, Krakadash, and Shalom. See you next one, Lord's will.